You're listening to a podcast from Glenstone Abbey.
It's funny how quickly the world can change. In early March, I was still making plans for various projects that I was working on and looking forward to a couple of lectures and conferences to which I was committed. By St. Patrick's Day, all of that had fallen away, and my diary was a blank sheet once again, as it had been on the 1st of January. With all the distractions removed, no boys in the school, no visitors in the guest house or tour groups to be shown around, there was very little left but the round of prayer, liturgy, meals, and time with the brethren. All of a sudden, it was like being in a monastery. That perhaps was the first lesson of lockdown for me. Asking myself again the question that St. Benedict poses to each monk at the start of the monastic journey. What do you seek? After 25 years of monastic profession, the lockdown provided an opportunity to engage with that question again. With the place to ourselves and a lot of work to be done, I found myself working in areas in which I'd not normally be involved. Most notably the work of clearing up after and setting up for meals. The amount of time that this took was another eye-opener. I'd never thought of it before. It was something that someone else did as I got on with the business of the day. It also brought me into contact with the kitchener and the cook, and increased my awareness of what the challenges of giving us this day our daily bread actually are. I realised also how dependent we are on supply chains and transport systems for our basic daily needs. Had the pandemic disrupted these, as it could so easily have done, we would have reached crisis point and reached it very soon. Yet all these systems depend for their smooth running on people who derive the minimum economic benefit from them. Low-paid workers all over the world, often exploited and taken for granted. Rarely, if ever, thought about by any of us, including myself. But there was a camaraderie in all of this also, a sense of a fraternity pulling together, pooling talents and energy to make sure that the show stayed on the road. And there were some delightful discoveries as well. Finding out who the secret baker was, the one who was prepared to take on the organisation of a film club each week, musicians willing to share their talents. On a personal level, my newly liberated diary gave me time to pursue another interest that I had neglected for nearly 25 years. My father is a very keen gardener, and I used to work with him in the family garden at home. I'd done a bit when I first came to the monastery, but this fell by the wayside when I went for studies and got immersed in the round of life and activity that followed on from profession. We have a polytunnel here that had been neglected for a few years, and which I decided to take in hand. With help from Brother Oscar and Tommy Ryan, I cleared it out and renewed the beds. I decided to keep things simple for the first year, but was very gratified by the results. It kept us in salad for much of the summer, provided enough peas and beans for one feast day celebration, and produced an impressive quantity of beet, which we've pickled. The big hit, however, were the tomatoes. Big, flavoursome beef tomatoes with a real and unforgettable tang. They kept cropping throughout September and October, and we enjoyed the last on November the 8th. This week I'll clear the place out, renew the beds, and start planting onions and celery for next year. So the biggest lesson of the lockdown for me was the opportunity it provided to rediscover much of what I already knew, had taken for granted, or perhaps forgotten. It was a valuable lesson to learn after 25 years of monastic profession, a real Jubilee gift.